I'm gonna bet when you guys think about pesto, you just think about Genovese with lots of fresh basil. Well, really, you can make pesto out of anything. Today, we're gonna prove that by making a delicious squash pesto. Welcome to Actually Italian. I'm Sal, and the focus on my channel is to give you some authentic recipes so you can cook like an Italian yourself. So the anatomy of a pesto kind of goes like this. The base of it is going to be a blend of olive oil, some grated cheese, some nuts, which vary depending on what the other ingredients are, some garlic, and then you have your main ingredient. And when you kind of get that concept, then you can see how you can really make a pesto out of anything. Today we're going to put that pesto together and we're going to pair it with, I think, the perfect pasta for it. It's an interesting shape and has an even more interesting story, which we'll get into in a bit. Let's start with the star of this pesto, which is the squash. Now I'm going to preheat my oven right now to 375 degrees because we want to roast this squash. I'm going to roast it in pieces so that way it kind of caramelizes and gives an extra depth of flavor, but it also concentrates the sweetness of the squash and all the other nuances that you get when you roast it in the oven. I also want to roast the garlic. So I'm going to put this all in a bowl, just toss it with some olive oil and some salt. So even though a pesto would generally have raw garlic in it, in this case I think the raw garlic is just going to be too aggressive for this. We're going to put it out on a flat baking sheet. This will go into the oven for about 20 minutes to 25 minutes. Just take a knife and give it a test. It's just as soft as butter. The knife just goes right through it. Now we're going to put together the pesto. You could use a food processor, but in my case I'm going to use this stick blender. I'm going to add some nuts, in this case walnuts, some grated cheese, and some olive oil. I love using walnuts for this because walnuts and squash are just a perfect match. They work really well together. Now I'll add the squash a little bit at a time and even add a little bit more olive oil just to get the consistency right. If you like this recipe so far, I'd love if you could give it a like. It's going to really help the video spread to a bigger audience of other food lovers like yourself. So I gave it another quick blend and it's all set. It's creamy, it's velvety and rich, and it's going to really coat the pasta well. When I was out to buy the pasta for this, I wanted to pick a pasta that was short and had some nice texture that was really going to grab onto the sauce. So I found these strozzapreti, which not only have the perfect shape because they have the angles and just kind of interesting look, but I also love the name because it means priest chokers. And the story goes that a long time ago in the Middle Ages, when Emilia-Romagna, the area where this pasta comes from, was under direct control of the popes, the priests at the time would go to the locals' houses for lunch on Sundays. And these people were poor and they still would put on a big feast for these priests. Over time, resentment started to build over these priests taking advantage, and somebody remarked, "I hope the priest chokes on it." And that lent the name to the pasta, strozzapreti, that exists to this day. All right, I've got the pasta water boiling, so I'm just going to toss the pasta in. And when it's just about done cooking, I'm going to reserve a little bit of the cooking liquid. Once the pasta's done and we drained it, I'm going to get a bowl ready with some of the pesto, and I'm going to add just a little bit of that cooking water to loosen it up. Where it's really thick right now, it wouldn't really coat the pasta that well. And then I just can toss it with the pasta now. Once I've got everything tossed well and all the pasta's coated nicely, I can then plate it up. To serve it up, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of walnut over the top just to give it a little texture, and it's ready to eat. The first thing that you notice is that nice, rich, and caramelized flavor of the roasted squash. We've got a hint of that sweet garlic there. The taste of those walnuts is pronounced, but it balances well with the sweetness of the squash. What I especially love about this is how different it is. I was looking for a different type of squash recipe, and I got it. I think you're going to love it too, so give it a shot and let me know what you think.